So hello and welcome to the Pricing for the Planet podcast, the podcast that explores the intersection of business and sustainability. I'm your host, Fabien Cros, and I'm here to demystify the economic potential of sustainable practices, including the innovative business model they enable, and bring you the latest trends, research, and insights in monetizing and pricing sustainability. We believe that going green is not just about responsibility, it's about profitability too. Whether you are a business leader, an entrepreneur, or simply curious about how sustainability can be monetized, our podcast will provide you with valuable and actionable knowledge. Today we are thrilled to have Hanae, the ESG Director of Webhelp Group, joining us to share insights and experiences.
Thank you very much, Fabien, for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited to be able to share our experience at the Webhelp Group. And the Webhelp Group is a leader, a global leader in customer journey and customer experiences in the BPO sector, so business process outsourcing. Yep. So we work for brands across 60 countries. We have 200 sites across the world and more than 120,000 people.
Wow, that's a big number. So could you share with us your journey to becoming an ESG director?
Of course. So I've been in Webhelp for 6 years. I think I have the opportunity to spearhead the creation of actually several group function at Webhelp. Webhelp is a very entrepreneurial company. Yes. Our co-founders are still within the company. One of the co-founders is still the CEO of the company, actually. I had the opportunity to create the group function for internal communications and knowledge management 6 years ago. Then I managed the crisis cell for COVID, so a little bit less fun.
A little crisis.
A little crisis, especially when you have to move, because at the time our industry was really within sites, so you had to move thousands of people from sites to home and create protocols. So again, it was very entrepreneurial. And this is really at the time when our leadership decided to create the group function for ESG, so environment, social, and governance. We had ESG activities throughout our regions, but not a group strategy.
So it's linked to COVID. Or it might influence the fact that you started ESG.
Yes, at least we managed to parallelize both. And a few months after COVID, we managed to start the group functions with our ESG ambassadors throughout the regions. So that's my journey at Webhelp. And I think there's also, to become an ESG director, you also need to have inspiration coming from within.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think it's a mix of personal conviction about the planet, when you think about your kids, the future of your kids, and also I think in my case as well, a little bit of inspiration around diversity and inclusion. Part of my family was Japanese immigrants in the US at the time of Pearl Harbor, so you can imagine the type of conversation about inclusion. And yeah, I think it comes also from your personal experience at home.
Can you share a little bit about your team structure, how it's organized? Do you have team members, a big team, an international team, a local team?
So for sure, we have an international team. So I report to the group managing director, Sandrina Seraf, who is in charge of corporate affairs and ESG. I think it's very important to have that level of seniority and visibility for ESG. She reports to the CEO, basically. Okay. So we have a voice at the table. It's a tremendous accelerator. We have a small centralized team that designs the strategy, the programs. When it comes to environmental program, we have a group environment director, for instance, or we have someone who's managing the Think Human Foundation, which is our endowment fund. Okay. But it's a small centralized team. And then we work with a network, with a community of ESG ambassadors throughout the entire world of Webhelp. Some are dedicated, some it's more part of their function. Basically, and the goal is to embed more and more ESG in the functions of the facilities, the HRs, the recruitment, the operations, and so on. Because I think that's the direction of ESG, that ESG will become part of every single jobs, and it's not just an ESG function.
It will be a component of everything, right?
Yes.
Cool. Well, perfect transition. So in your role, how do you approach the monetization of sustainability with like the broad terminology around sustainability? So ESG being, one aspect or vice versa of sustainability.
Yes, and I think it's important to stress that sustainability is not just the environment, and we see it more and more that environment and the social components are totally linked. Too many companies they view ESG as a box to tick. They have to do it, and they don't perceive it as a value driver. And if you want to start monetizing sustainability, you have to do the contrary. So that's what we do at Webhelp. We try to see where can we bring value. So this is also when we think about the objectives. So we set various objectives and KPIs on our ESG strategy. We have 3 of them on the people side.
Okay.
And why? Because we have thousands of people, game changers we call them at Webhelp. We recruit thousands of people every year. So the people side is really where we can make an impact. At Webhelp, we call our ESG strategy the More movement, to remind everyone that we can do more for people, more for planet, more for progress, and more for philanthropy every single day.
I like that. The more movement.
The more movement, yeah.
Interesting.
So really in B2B, especially in B2B, it's thinking, where is the value that I can deliver, especially with regards to our clients' ESG goals themselves. We start having clients setting themselves goals, and they replicate it in their value chain. So this is where we can create value for them.
Okay. Yeah, proving them that actually with your ESG, you will actually collaborate. And exactly. I like this because it's like we are moving from like silo companies to ecosystem, where actually you collaborate on subtopics. Could be digital, could be ESG. And I think ESG is really driving the transformation, because you don't see suppliers anymore. You see collaborators or partners.
Totally.
Super interesting. And do you see this collaboration impacting Webhelp sales, or like winning more projects or bids, or
totally. I think that's been in the last year or 18 months the most striking change for me, in the sense that probably half of my week I work with sales teams on bids and with account management on crafting projects with their clients. And that comes from the fact that now in the RFPs, you can see up to 20% of the grading in the RFP just on ESG.
Wow.
So that's a huge shift. It's not just the price, the technology, the operation, the HR piece, but you have to prove that you're doing good and you're delivering well on the ESG piece. So the impact is you really have to train the sales. There's a massive effort to do on training the sales, so that they have the good reflex to think, here there is an opportunity to work with that client and embed in our response to proposal a solution linked to ESG.
Wow. So it's becoming a differentiator.
Totally.
So you're trying to get like above or better than your competitor, and actually lead through ESG to show that you are more advanced. And now it's becoming a big change during like a business conversation with your clients or potential clients.
Yes. And even the nature of the RFPs sometimes change, in the sense that I've seen clients asking for delivering, let's say, a chat solution, for instance, in Africa, with a component of impact sourcing. So let's say 20% of the game changers we will hire have to come from impact sourcing channel. And that's that's the blueprint of the RFP. So you cannot fake it. You cannot invent it. You have to show your track record.
And that's super interesting about impact sourcing, because I think it's not everybody will understand that, and I know that's where you are super strong. So can you deep dive a little bit on this?
Yes. Yeah. So indeed, in our industry, in the BPO sector, impact sourcing refers to the fact that clients will choose suppliers who have an intentional approach to provide career opportunities to people who usually are excluded from the labor market, and for wrong reasons, because of biases. So these can be populations like long-term unemployed, single parents, people with disabilities, young people who don't have a diploma. So there are universal categories, and then you also have very localized categories. And we work with NGOs to detect these populations because it's really linked to the location of your site. I think we've always done impact sourcing, but we never really named it as such. When I speak to my colleagues in Morocco about initiatives, so we have language initiatives in Latin America where we provide free training in partnership with the government. And I tell that to the Moroccan team, and they're like, "Hanae, we were doing that 20 years ago. We were providing free French classes to candidates who didn't have the exact level we needed. But if you partner, and that's your point about partnership, if you partner with, for instance, governments who have millions to spend in trainings, why not focus on the needs, the needs for languages, for instance. And therefore, with this intentional approach, you manage to get them on board on your projects, and the results are fantastic. I mean, in our sector, we talk a lot about attrition and retention, for instance. The appetite for these candidates and these recruits to keep their job, first of all, and then seize any opportunity for development. And that's the topic about providing career opportunities, because it's not just becoming an advisor. Then you can become a team leader, and then an ops manager, and then maybe a quality trainer. And I think in Webhelp we have a huge culture of internal promotion, and it's crucial because the moment you get the new recruits on, let's say, the frontline jobs, but not only, you can recruit in interns in support functions, for instance, as well, through impact sourcing, then they will seize any opportunity to grow within your business. And then you tackle your topic of retention, performance, ENPS.
I love that. You are creating loyalty internally.
Yeah, totally.
Talking about customer experience, here we go. No, that's super interesting. Can you share the example of South Africa?
Yes, so South Africa, of course. I think South Africa is the first country where the model grew rapidly because of the size of the pool of talent we could target. Because in South Africa, youth unemployed without any diploma is having an unemployment rate going through the roof, above 60% some years. So you have the talent pool, you have the companies who need to hire, and in between you have partners like Harambee, which is the partner we worked with originally, who will create, supported by the state, what we call work readiness programs. And these programs will teach everything the young people will need to know before entering the workforce. So what is it to have, a boss? What is it to work in shifts? What is it to be on time, etc., etc. And the best thing is that the more the NGOs know there is a pipeline, the more they can customize the program. So, for instance, they can go deeper into what it is to work for the BPO sector. And I'm thinking of Malaysia, for instance, and the Philippines, where they developed this kind of training. And we work with an organization called LP for Youth, where we start tackling what is the BPO sector, and there are opportunities for the young people there as well. And once you've done that work readiness program, and that's what happened with Harambee, they couldn't do that for every company because other companies than us are looking to recruit. So they start transferring the knowledge so that we can internalize the work readiness programs. And now we have a full skills accelerator program. And on top of that, a retail skills accelerator. So the youth go through the work readiness, the BPO sector induction, and then skills accelerator on retail because we have lots of retail clients there. And again, the results have been tremendous. The team has been great in monitoring the KPIs on the pilot. So,
and that's what I really like with this case, because we like to talk about monetization. It's like here it's a different thinking about monetization because it's not directly selling at a higher price or at a higher margin. It's really reducing your internal cost of attrition or your turnover, and that's what makes the difference. So you are doing kind of good from an ESG point of view, but you have a business impact by doing so.
Yes, you have to be a bit patient and think long term because indeed, you have to, for instance, invest in let's say a little bit of me looking for the associations, looking for designing the models by the teams locally. But in the long term, if you do your business case, we know the model works and there is a return on investment.
Yes, and I think it's part of ESG as well. It's changing the mindset from very, very short term, purely financial model to a more 3P model, long term or longer term, but way broader in terms of what we are looking. It's not just financial impact. It's impact on the planet, on the people, and of course on the monetary point of view, but longer term.
Yes, exactly. So that's why originally we said we wanted to recruit 5% of all our recruits globally on impact sourcing. I think it was very conservative, but because we realized the first year we were doing 10% already. And now every year we increase by 1%. Last year we did 11%. This year we want to do 12%. And in 2025, 15% of all our recruits. So it's just like any other recruitment channel, the job boards, the referrals, the website.
Great. And so do you think, a tricky question, do you think your client might be able actually to pay more for those kind of like special skills or special ESG program? Or do you think it's like they want the same price than the other? They just want a company or a partner doing that as part of their normal business model?
I don't know yet if they want to pay more, but I know they are willing to attribute a certain part of their budget to that kind of models. I have two examples. One, so it's more localized in France, but I heard from potential prospects that they had money to spend on diverse suppliers and suppliers who were hiring people with disabilities. And in their procurement strategy, it is set. It can also be dictated sometimes by the government's requirements. But there are procurement money directed for these programs. And more recently, we had a client who came to us because they have set internally a target to impact 3,000 people through their supply chains through impact hiring. So they're looking for suppliers like us who will help them reach that target of 3,000. So for that, they need suppliers. So they need suppliers that they will pay. So we need to be ready for that.
So now ESG is like you get a seat at the table, right? It's not anymore like if you want to play the game, you have to be like ESG ready and actually be a player in this field. And if you are not anymore, you don't have any business anymore.
Yes, because you cannot participate to the RFPs that state, I want this type of operation in this location with, in that instance, impact sourcing. You're disqualified if you don't have any impact sourcing in that case.
Super interesting. No, great. Maybe one question, it's like more about advice. Like, do you have any advice for other businesses looking to monetize sustainability indirectly like Webhelp did, or willing actually to explore more the social aspect of ESG?
I think my first advice is really to start embedding it in the model to be authentic, because it's not something you can add like a cherry on the cake. And second advice, be ready. It's a long journey, so be ready to spend a lot of time onboarding, explaining the model, and doing pilots, because on a small scale, so that you can prove your results. If we didn't have the figures from South Africa, for instance, it would be harder to convince internally that the model works and that we can do more and more pilots.
Yeah, so start somewhere, prove the value, and then scale it.
Yes.
And how do you manage the relationship with sales? Do they embrace what you are doing? Do they consider that it's a seat at the table? Are they kind of like, oh no, it's another initiative, I'm wasting my time? How do they react?
I think they embrace it because they are seeing the trend, and it's also very rewarding for the sales to win projects that are related to ESG. I mean, usually people are happy when they're working with the ESG team, because it's good projects for the planet, for the society. Yeah. So they're embracing it, but there's still a journey to understand the concepts, understand that ESG is not impact sourcing, that there are different terminologies, not to mention everything related to carbon footprints, because carbon footprints necessitates to understand the scopes and demystify also sometimes. So sometimes people would have biases or misconceptions, and we also need to debunk that with them.
And maybe last one, it's the future of ESG. Very, very broad topic, but what do you see for the future of ESG? Do you see some trends coming up, some development, new ideas to test?
So I think, first of all, in the future, there's no way to do without ESG. It's literally everywhere. And you can see the change, or at least I can tell for France, the change in the media voice of ESG. Little by, we all wanted to go faster, okay? But you get more and more articles, everyday sections on that. And like any company, we're in the society, so our employees and any employees is probably more and more concerned vis-a-vis their own company. Yeah. So we can see also more employees being sometimes more vocal or being more passionate internally about the topic. So in general, for companies, it's like a wave. I think that's coming, that it's not just business and clients, it's the people within the company as well. It's the clients you meet, and they look at the panel that you have in your room, and they notice right away if you have diversity or not in the sales team, for instance, that you present. So it's gonna be ubiquitous for sure, and I think it's a question of speed. So you have to take the time to prepare your methodology. But then go and scale, really.
Super interesting. Any advice around how do you, because I like what you said, the value driver, any advice on really translating what you are doing around ESG into a value driver with this kind of monetizing point of view?
I think it's really just like when you analyze the business of the company that you're trying to sell to in B2B in that case. Don't forget to look at their sustainability report. Just like their annual report, that's always my advice.
How many people are not doing it?
Because or find interviews of the CEO, the ESG, and look at their evolution. More and more businesses start to have adjacencies that tackle ESG, because they cannot revolutionize the entire business through ESG, but pay attention to that.
Great. Hanae, Thank you so much. Do you have anything else to add or you would like to cover?
No, my pleasure. It was. Thank you very much for bringing the topic in the pricing. This is something we started a year ago with Sandrine to look at with clients. Be willing to pay more. With clients, be willing to have an entire offer. So we talked a lot about impact sourcing today, but I think there's a topic about where do you locate your operations as well. We didn't talk about the sites, the physical buildings, but there is a trend. So every new buildings, for instance, we open, we try to have the latest top-notch standards for that. And again, there's a long-term value, an engagement from your clients who come to the site, of your employees who comes to the site as well. And vis-a-vis how the environment is changing as well.
That's a good one. Yeah, actually, you can monetize the fact that you are super green with your building. That's the two main assets of Webhelp: people first, and then buildings.
And in B2B, you enter as a company the scope 3 of your clients.
Yeah.
So every single RFP now, we have the question of the carbon footprint. Yeah. How do you reduce your carbon footprint to reduce your client's carbon footprint?
Again, back to the ecosystemic way of thinking. Exactly. I love that. Interesting. Well, maybe the next one we will go to the Webhelp office in Paris. I know this office. I know it super well. It's brand new.
Yes.
So perfect. Hanae, thank you again. It was super interesting. Very, very interesting points. And yeah, I wish we will do another one soon.
Thank you very much, Fabien. I wish to.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pricing for the Planet podcast. We've enjoyed having this conversation, exploring how our choices can directly impact the sustainability of our planet. And we hope you found it insightful and inspiring too. If you want to stay connected with us, learn more, and continue this sustainability journey, please subscribe to our bi-weekly digests on www.PricingForThePlanet.com. There you will find the latest updates, insights, and innovative strategies about sustainable practices and pricing. But we also need your help. By leaving a comment and rating this podcast, you are not just giving us feedback, you are also helping boost the visibility of these critical discussions. Every comment, every like, every share counts. They help us reach more people and spread the word about our mission. And finally, if you've been moved by what you have heard today, we encourage you to share this podcast with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and anyone else who might be interested. Every person you introduce to Pricing for the Planet is another ally in our collective mission to make the world more sustainable. Together, we can take small action that will create big changes. Remember, each of us has a role to play, and every action, no matter how small, can make a difference. So let's use the power of our collective voice to change the world for the better. Thank you for your time, your interest, and your commitment to sustainability. Be well.